The grand mansion stood silent that evening, its marble floors echoing the faint sound of footsteps from the staff preparing dinner. The air smelled of polish and wealth, but also of loneliness. For years, the house had been filled with everything money could buy, except laughter. Alexander Reed, the millionaire businessman, had built his empire from nothing. Yet in his endless pursuit of success, he had lost the warmth of his own home. His wife had passed years ago, leaving behind their only son, Ethan, a quiet boy with a broken spirit. Ethan hadn't smiled in months, maybe even years. Doctors called it emotional withdrawal. Therapists tried, teachers failed, and even Alexander, with all his riches, couldn't reach his son's heart. So, he buried himself deeper into work, convincing himself that money and comfort would someday heal the boy's silence. But that evening, something urged him to come home early, unannounced. He didn't call the staff or his assistant. He just wanted to see things as they really were, without anyone pretending. His black car stopped before the tall iron gates, and he walked inside quietly. As he entered, he noticed something unusual, the sound of laughter. A soft, genuine, melodic laugh coming from the backyard. For a moment, he froze, unsure if he was dreaming. Ethan's laughter. No, it couldn't be. His son hadn't laughed since his mother's funeral. Slowly, Alexander followed the sound, his heart pounding faster than it had in years. Through the glass doors, he saw the most unexpected scene. Ethan was sitting on the grass, his small hands covered in paint, and beside him was a young woman, his new nanny, Clara. She was helping him paint a messy, colorful picture on a giant canvas. The boy's face was glowing with joy as he dipped his fingers in paint and smeared them across the sheet, giggling uncontrollably. Clara laughed with him, encouraging him to mix colors, to make mistakes, to have fun. Alexander stood there, hidden behind a pillar, unable to move. He watched as Ethan looked up at Clara and said something so simple, yet powerful. "Look, Mommy would have loved this, right?" Clara smiled softly and nodded. "She would have, sweetheart. And she'd be so proud of you." Tears welled up in Alexander's eyes. For the first time, his son was talking about his mother without crying. For the first time, he looked alive. Alexander leaned against the wall, remembering the countless therapists he had hired, the expensive toys, the specialists, the schools, all trying to fix Ethan. But none of them gave him what he truly needed: love, patience, and time. Clara had been in their house for just 2 weeks. She wasn't a therapist, nor did she come from a fancy background. She was simply kind, someone who saw Ethan not as a broken child but as a boy who needed to be understood. Alexander slowly stepped outside, and Ethan turned, surprised. "Dad," he said softly. Alexander froze. His son hadn't called him that in months. It had always been sir or nothing at all. I just came home early," Alexander said, his voice trembling. Clara stood up quickly, wiping her hands nervously. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reed, we were just..." But he stopped her. "No," he said, his eyes fixed on his son. "You don't need to apologize. You did something no one else could." Ethan smiled again, a real, warm smile that melted years of guilt from Alexander's heart. He knelt beside his son and placed a hand on his shoulder. "That's beautiful, son," he whispered. "Your mom would have loved it." Clara quietly stepped back, letting them have their moment. The golden sunlight painted the scene like a memory, father and son, together again, united by something simple yet powerful, a smile. For the rest of the evening, Alexander stayed outside with them. He joined in the painting, laughed at the mess, and for the first time, he felt like a father, not a businessman. Later that night, as Clara cleaned up, Alexander stopped her by the door. "Clara," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I owe you more than I can ever repay." She smiled gently. "You don't owe me anything, sir." Ethan just needed someone to listen. After she left, Alexander stood by his son's room. Ethan was asleep, hugging the messy painting close to his chest. On the canvas, written in colorful letters, were the words, "My family." Alexander smiled through his tears. That night, he sat in the living room, staring at the family portrait above the fireplace, the same one he used to ignore. For the first time, he realized something money could never buy: love, laughter, and healing. He promised himself that he would never again let work steal the moments that truly mattered. From that day on, the mansion was no longer silent. Every evening echoed with laughter, paint-splattered hands, and bedtime stories. The staff couldn't believe how much Alexander had changed. He attended Ethan's school plays, learned to cook pancakes on Sundays, and even joined Clara and Ethan in their art sessions. The men who once measured life in profits now measured it in smiles. And each time Ethan laughed, Alexander whispered a silent prayer of gratitude for the nanny who came as a stranger but became a miracle. As the story spread among neighbors and friends, people began to say that Millionaire has everything. But Alexander knew the truth. He had nothing until he came home that one evening and saw his son finally smile.